so sworn to testify truthfully. Mr. Perry, you may proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Dwyer, welcome.
Morning.
Okay, so again, you guys do be very mindful that we have Mr. Pancake on tap. We have the owl vision. I do believe we are getting into medical examiner, and we might stop here for the day. We'll see how it goes. I basically have another stream starting. I do have to pick up the feral boys, but this might be one of those days where after this testimony, we let it breathe. We are not, we are going on our own pace on the Petty Express. And as much as I tell you guys to be mindful of your mental health, depending on how this testimony goes, we might wait to catch up on the rest of the day tomorrow. Like I said, we're not on a schedule. We are already off on a day. My type A isn't liking that, but we might stop here. We might not. It'll just depend. So I will try to let you know, but it definitely is going to be difficult. So pause yourself if you need to, take breaks, and just be very kind to yourself. Let me get her banner ready. I wish that I could pull off a very peroxided pixie cut like she does, but I would not be able to.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury and tell them what you do for a living?
Good morning. My name is Dr. Jessica Dwyer. That's D as in dog, W-Y-E-R. I'm the Chief Medical Examiner and Director of the Crime Lab for the Southwestern Institute of Forensic Sciences in Dallas County.
And can you tell me, as a medical examiner, what is sort of your job description?
So a medical examiner is the same thing as a forensic pathologist. Pathology is an area of medicine that's focused on the study of disease. Forensic pathology is even more specific.
Did anyone have Annie Lennox from early Eurythmics being the medical examiner? And excuse me, but my brain is trying to find anything but focusing on the reality of why this woman is here. I must say she pulls off the Annie Hall look very well. It is a severe look, though, but I think in an authoritative position like this, it's okay to have a bit of a Madonna-esque look.
Focuses on the study of death.
I take that back. Tank Girl. If anyone watched the Fever Dream movie that was Tank Girl, that's who she looks like.
So that's basically what I do.
And can you tell us what kind of background, training, experience you had qualified you for the job that you currently hold?
Sure. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Animal Science from Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas. Following that, I obtained a medical degree from the University of Texas Health Science Center of San Antonio, which is in San Antonio, Texas. Following that, I completed a combined anatomic and clinical pathology residency with the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then following that, I did a year of specialized training in forensic pathology that's called a fellowship. And that was with the Office of the Medical Examiner of Allegheny County, which is also in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then along the way, there are 3 licensing exams that you have to take in order to practice medicine in the United States. Passed all of those on the first attempt. And I also have 3 board certifications in anatomic, clinical, and forensic pathology, all of which I passed on the first attempt.
And since you have become a medical examiner at the Southwest Institute of Forensic Sciences, have you, I guess, been given other duties than just the level of medical examiner?
Yes, sir. As the Director and Chief Medical Examiner, I have a lot of administrative duties as well, but I do still perform autopsies every day.
Are you at supervisory duties over the others?
Yes.
And with regard to an autopsy that was performed on the date of, I believe it was December 3rd of 2022, approximately 7:30 a.m. on an individual by the name of Athena Strand. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
And so I just stated the date it was on, but how was it that you first became aware of this case? And was it different? Were you just on duty that day, or did you specifically go to perform the autopsy on this particular day?
I was scheduled for work that day, so whatever cases are reported to the office that we ultimately bring in for an examination are your task for the day. So in this case was reported from the Justice of the Peace in Wise County, and they requested us to perform the autopsy, and that was my assignment for the day.
And according to your understanding, what was that day in relation to the day where her body was located?
So I believe the body, because this was a Saturday morning, I do remember it was on a Saturday. I believe her body was discovered Friday evening, and the case was reported to us somewhere in the late evening, early morning on Saturday, the December 3rd.
And is that common or unusual as far as an autopsy being performed so quickly? How does it normally take place?
No, for cases that are reported to our office and brought in for an examination, we try to maintain a 24-hour turnaround time. So this is not unique.
Okay, you talk real fast.
I'll try.
You're forward, not down.
Yes, sir.
I love it. She's a little too northern for this Texas. Look, she speaks northern. That's just it's a cadence thing. I think she's being, pretty clinical. To be fair, I'm more jealous that she can wear a white shirt with a white tie and it's still white. I mean, that would have salsa on it from the moment I got it. That being said, I find these little moments of levity to be something I really kind of those little points of light in a dark night. So I don't mind so much where people just has to. No, I think these things a lot, but I tend not to actually verbalize on them unless you have chosen to be in front of the public in a public facing, career. And then I do comment on it because I kind of wonder what, you're trying to send or what message you're trying to send. That being said, I usually don't pick on people unless they annoy me, and you're good people, so.
With regard to the autopsy on Athena Strand, can you kind of just walk us through just the basic process of what happens from the time?
I really want you to look at this, though, again, because I think this is very professional. And it's not disrespectful. There's that moment of levity, and then watch her face as we get back into business. She does become professional.
With regard to the autopsy on Athena Strand, can you kind of just walk us through just the basic process of what happens from the time that a body is delivered to the medical examiner's office until the point that you encounter it?
So the process of an autopsy?
Well, the process of getting it to you.
Okay.
Yes.
So in this instance, the body is actually brought to our facility, specifically the morgue area. We do scan the body in. The body bag is sealed with a plastic tag that we keep closed until the time of the examination. But as the body is scanned into the building, it doesn't mean that we are automatically starting the autopsy at that point. So we have a cooler that they stay in until the autopsy is performed. And then not the process of the autopsy, just the intake part, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So once
And on a very observational note, a lot of her dress up might be armor for her. I know that if I'm going to be tackling something or I don't really want to go out for the day, I will put on a wig and pretend to be someone else. So a lot of this might be armor for her to feel confident enough to do a good job for Athena. So that's another perspective that, occurred to me because, a lot of times we do feel better about ourselves, more confident when we take time to, make our appearance good. Maybe she needed that little bit of confidence, that little bit of red lipstick, kick-assness to cover this because she had to deal with this little girl that should be running around and, enjoying Christmas. She had to be the, one of the collectors of evidence to make sure that a monster didn't go free. So it could be a bit of armor. I know if I were going to testify, I'd probably take a lot of time just as one of those armor things.
we're ready to begin the process of the autopsy, let me ask you this first of all. What's the purpose of the cooler?
So it is kept at a cold temperature to just preserve the condition of the body.
And is that slow the rate of something?
Decomposition, slows the rate of decomposition, yes.
And are there some documents that you usually have to have in order to do an autopsy?
There are some documents that we typically have before the autopsy, yes.
And can you kind of describe what that is?
So our building is a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week operation, but I am not physically in the building 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Who answers the phone for our facility are our forensic investigators. So anytime a death is reported to our facility, it's the death investigator that is taking that information, determining if this case needs to actually be brought in for an examination, et cetera. So they will draft a report of all the things that were reported to them by whoever is reporting the death. So it's called an investigator narrative. So that's given to the medical examiner prior to the case, so we have an idea as to what's the circumstances of the death and kind of helps us triage our cases for the day.
So you had some understanding of what was the circumstances before you did the autopsy?
Yes, sir.
Do you also have to be given some official authorization from somebody in the county that it comes
No, it's an old Daria shirt that I've had for a while, and I just felt like wearing something comfy today.
from in order for you to do an autopsy?
So because I'm an employee of Dallas County is my jurisdiction. However, when another county is requesting our office to do an autopsy, they have to provide an authorization form stating we're requesting Dallas County to perform this autopsy, correct?
Now, as you are conducting an autopsy, do you take notes, fill out diagrams, things like that, to record your findings so that later you can put them in your autopsy?
Yes, sir.
And can you describe what that's called?
We kind of
And thank you for gifting a membership, Squaw Bob. And that went to Craft Granny. So welcome to the Church of Mo. We have dark chocolate, sarcasm, and all the stuff you need to get through these trials. So thanks for joining us and welcome. You get access now to me reading our book club book. And you know, my throat feels better today, so I'll probably try to get some chapters in. But thank you so much and welcome to the church.
colloquially refer to them as our bench notes. Essentially, it's all the notes from the case that I'm going to then take to my desk after I'm done with the case so I can officially memorialize it in a more organized, neat fashion into an autopsy report.
Now, before an autopsy report comes out, is there another short form report that is often issued by the medical examiners before the final autopsy report?
So we do have a cause of death report that you can request through our office, and what it is it's on official letterhead, and it just provides the cause and manner of death for the decedent with the signature of the pathologist performing that examination.
And then, of course, the final document would be your examination report. And what is that called?
You're talking about the finalized autopsy report?
Yes.
Yes, that's the neat version. It also incorporates any findings from toxicology or some ancillary testing that we may or may not request, but that is the comprehensive finalized report.
May I approach you?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Dwyer, I'm going to show you 4 different documents. State's Exhibit number 271, you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
And what is State's Exhibit number 271?
This is the autopsy authorization form for decedent Athena Strand that's signed by Judge Jan Morrow, who is the Justice of the Peace for Precinct 1 in Wise County, Texas.
And State's Exhibit number 272, you may have to look through that and see if you recognize all the pages.
Yes, sir.
And what is State's Exhibit number 272?
This is a copy of my bench notes.
Okay. And chronologically, that would come during the autopsy itself, correct?
Correct, yes.
All right. Now, following the autopsy, the short form report, State's Exhibit 273?
Yes, this is the cause of death report, signed by me.
All right. And then finally, State's Exhibit number 274.
Yes, sir, this is a copy of the finalized autopsy report.
Thank you. Do the documents, both of the bench notes, the cause of death report, and the autopsy itself, do those document your findings during the autopsy of Athena Strand on December 3rd, 2022?
Yes, sir.
I will offer into evidence State's Exhibit 271, 272, 273, and 274.
State's Exhibits 271 through 274 were admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I publish?
Yes.
start with State's Exhibit number 274. I'm going to leave all this up here because it shows us what the page number is as we're looking at it on your autopsy. So as we look at State's Exhibit 274, it's titled, what is it titled?
Autopsy report.
Okay. Do you see on there the date and approximate time that the body was found?
Yes, sir.
And what is that for purposes of the record?
So date of death is based on when she was found, which was December 2nd, 2022 at 8:45 p.m.
And then what is the date and time that the autopsy itself was performed according to this document?
Where it says examination performed December 3rd, 2022 at 7:30 a.m.
Now, with regard to the
Hey, before we go forward, Post-Punk Mama, we are on the medical examiner testimony. I am not encouraging you to leave or stay. I just wanted you to be aware that we're getting into some rough testimony. So didn't want you to come in and kind of go, oh, holy cow, I don't know if I can deal with this today. So do be aware of that. And we'd love to have you here, but I don't want you to stay if knowing what we're going into. If, that's going to be too much. Sorry, I love that I start a statement and then finish it in my head.
autopsy itself, before the autopsy begins, is there an evidence collection? You can turn that off for a second. Is there an evidence collection process that takes place?
Yes,
And can you describe that for the jury, please?
depending on the type of or suspicion of death, we may collect trace evidence at the autopsy. In the event that there's a firearm potentially used in the decedent's death, we would test for gunpowder residue, or we may collect hair, we may collect fingernails, or a blood sample to ultimately be dried on a blood card. Those are some examples of trace evidence we collect.
And was that done in this particular case?
Yes, sir.
And of those things that were collected, can you describe them, what was collected in this particular case?
Yes. So we did collect a blood card, so it has 4 spots of dried blood on it. That's to preserve her DNA. We have a sample of her scalp hair, which we also use for DNA. When her body was actually received with her hands covered with brown paper bags, we will keep those brown paper bags. I did perform gunshot residue testing on her hands just because I didn't know what kind of death we were potentially dealing with when I did the case. And then also collected fingernail clippings from both of her hands, her right and left hand. And then we
She caught herself. She is being incredibly good at this. You can tell that this is rough on her, but I appreciate the professionalism and competence that she's brought into this.
also collected a sexual activity kit.
And the sexual activity kit, can you describe what that is?
So exactly that. It is evidence that may be related to sexual activity. So it's typically swabs and pubic hair collection. So for a man, it would be swabs from the penis and penile urethra, in addition to the anus and the oral cavity or the mouth. For a female, it would be oral cavity, vagina, both the outside and the inside, and also the anus.
And with regard to those things, once they're collected, what happens to them?
They're packaged in a kit, and they ultimately get transferred to our evidence registration. Since this is an out-of-county case, it doesn't automatically go to our crime lab. The county would then have to request testing or analysis of that kit from our crime lab, or they may send it elsewhere, but it gets sent to our evidence registration.
And, yeah, hold on for a second. I need to ask a question. May I approach her?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to show you what has been marked for identification purposes as 260, states 269, and states 270. Does it appear to have the evidence tape from the Dallas County Medical Examiner?
Yes, with my initials.
And can you describe, first of all, what would be in states exhibit number 269?
So a lot of this writing in yellow tape is not mine, but what I can tell you is that this is typically how I package evidence from a homicide or potential homicide. and there is a sticker itemizing this particular item that correlates to the number for this decedent. And then we will seal the top of the bag with tape and red evidence tape, which I initial. But the yellow tape and everything else, I don't know who did that.
And what would the contents be? I'm sorry.
Everything that I just listed that I collected would be in there with the exception of the sexual activity kit.
And then State's Exhibit number 270.
Yes, sir. This is the sexual activity kit.
Okay. And these both relate to the body of Athena Strand and the autopsy done on December 3rd, 2022.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. I will offer State's Exhibit number 269 and 270 into evidence.
State's Exhibits 269 and 270 are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Dwyer, during this process of conducting an autopsy, is there someone there, either yourself or someone at your immediate direction, that takes photographs of this process?
No, I take the photographs.
Okay. And what is the purpose of taking the photographs?
So we take photographs on every postmortem examination or autopsy. There's standard photographs we do for every case, and then in some cases they may require additional photographs, essentially documenting with photographic evidence any of your findings.
And do the photographs that you have, are they given specific monikers as far as the name of the photograph itself that are unique, at least within that case, so that there's no mix-up, two things have the same name?
So any decedent that is examined in our office is given what we call a unique identifying number. It always starts with IFS and the year that the autopsy is performed. And so all of the photographs pertaining to this decedent will be labeled with that IFS number.
And approximately, if you know, how many photographs were taken in this case? Yeah.
I don't know the exact number.
Prior to court, though, I think I showed you approximately 38 of the total number of photographs that were taken by you during this autopsy.
Yes, sir.
And do you have an opinion as to whether it would aid the jury in understanding your testimony to maybe not here in court today, but at some point have an opportunity to view those photographs?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, Coach, you're on.
Yes, sir.
And again, I don't know if this is a function of maybe the judge saying, hey, they just listened to the audio on Friday, let's give them a couple days, or if the decision has been made to leave the more incredibly heavy evidence to Fridays. But I do like that the judge is using discretion and, pacing themselves as far as what the jurors have to see. The report is going to be horrible enough. And they do have access to the photos. They will be able to take them with them to the deliberation room should they ask for them. But I very much like the care that's been taken to keep these photos from getting, on the internet or anywhere.
Dr. Dwyer, the reason we're doing it this way is to avoid unintentionally displaying photographs that we do not at this time intend to display.
Okay.
So each of the photographs that I'm going to ask you about has been covered with a slip cover, so that if I ask you about it, you're going to have to slide the slip cover or the photograph up, but just if you be careful not to display it unintentionally.
Sure.
All right, thank you. At this point, I'm going to ask you to look at these. Have you seen?
Again, the level of detail has been impressive. The fact that they had, protectors over this, they really have thought of every possibility in which these photos that no one should have to see, stay out of the public eye. And I am so here for it. I am so here for the extra attention to detail.
Prior to court today, what I would call a contact sheet that has the different state's exhibit numbers that go with the different photographs in this case.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm going to show you that. I'm not offering it into evidence, but would aid in your going through these to be able to see that.
Thank you.
Mr. Berry, let's mark that and we'll admit it as a record purpose.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we spoke about that before we came back, and that's no issue.
Okay.
If you guys have to the record on.
Okay.
And that would be, I believe, 286 for purposes of the record.
Again, just the going ahead to make a little thumbnail page so she doesn't have to flip through that book. And again, have the possibility of an inadvertent photograph getting out. I just very much love all the attention to detail, all of the care and dignity that was given to this case. And it appears that this care and dignity is given to every case in this judge's courtroom. He has been a really good judge for this case.
Thank you. I put it here on the top right corner. The court reporter wants me to put it on the bottom right, but I didn't want to cover anything up. So if you use this during your testimony.
You offer 286 for the record?
Yes, sir.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor, as long as it's not going to be admitted at all.
Okay, 286 is admitted for purposes of the record.
Regarding the autopsy of Athena Strand, can you tell us how did she come to the medical examiner's office and what state?
So are you talking about when we actually are you asking for my observation when we initially opened the body bag and my initial view of the body?
Well, I mean, let's talk about the body bag first of all.
Okay.
What is the body bag?
So decedents are typically transferred to and from our facility within a plastic pouch that is a body bag, just so you can maintain privacy and they can be transferred in and out of the facility discreetly and preserve evidence.
And if there's any additional debris, fibers, other things that have come off of the body, is it also to help preserve those things?
Yes.
Okay. And do you go about the process of, is there some type of procedure that is done even before the body is removed from the body bag?
Yes. So let me also backtrack. We work with, when I do an autopsy, I work with an autopsy technician and we work side by side. So they are ultimately the ones that will go and retrieve the body from our cooler. In addition, before the autopsy, they can do a postmortem x-ray, which is just like what you're familiar with from a hospital. And we're just looking for any potential foreign material that we want to collect and the evidentiary items. And then the body is brought to the autopsy station. And then we break the seal, open the body bag, and I will document the condition of the body with photographs. We typically refer to those as is photographs because it's before we do anything to the body.
And were those things done in this particular case?
Yes, sir.
And what can you tell us whether or not there were any foreign objects that were identified as part of the X-ray?
No.
Okay. Now, with regard to the body itself, you said that you took some as-is photographs, and I would ask you to refer in your book there to, if you need to remove those from that book to be more discreet, however you need to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
But State's Exhibit number 231 and 232, could you personally look at those and tell me if those are the as-is photographs that you were talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we're going to go through this process in a way where, rather than displaying them, I'm going to just ask you to describe what you're seeing for purposes of the record. That way, if there's any question about it later, they can refer back to your testimony.
Okay.
So,
again, these choices, the state could have ripped the jury's souls out. This would have been an easy case to use all of the levers of emotion and just the wrongness of what happened to Athena to win the case. Hands down, I don't think there would have been any critique of them doing that. But I appreciate that, again, the medical examiner and everyone has taken such great care with not only Athena, but the family and friends who are in the gallery.
with regard to State's Exhibit number 231 and 232, the as-is photographs, would you please describe what you're looking at in those photographs?
So there are two of them because one is the upper half of her body, including her head and face, and then the second one is the lower half of her body, including her legs and feet. And so Basically, how I received her is that she is naked, there's no clothing, and both of her hands are covered with brown paper bags, as I referred to previously, that are actually secured around her wrists with tape. And then her body was covered with kind of a brownish dirt silt appearance, and there was also fragments of vegetation within the body bag and within her scalp hair.
And just for understanding for the jury, when you take the photograph, is there anything that is covered up on the body as you are taking the photograph?
No.
Okay. Those documents, though, State's Exhibit number 231 and 232, have certain portions of that photograph been covered just for discretion's sake.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, let's go ahead. We're going to look at your autopsy report. And I think we can do this without the light off. The first thing you do is the external examination. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And can you just kind of describe in general terms what is involved in the external examination?
So the external examination is also standard process for any postmortem examination. And I always describe it as I start on one side of the body, say a foot, work my way up the entire side of that body to the head, and then to the opposite side of the body. And what I'm looking for is evidence of natural disease, evidence of trauma, any potentially identifying features like hair color, eye color, tattoos, scars, etc. Lots of different things. And once I'm done kind of looking at, and then lastly, we will roll the body so that I can see the back of the body. And then once that's complete, that's the end of the external examination.
I also very much like how she's humanizing. She's one of the better medical examiners, very much more personable. And this might just be her personality, but I very much like how she's explaining this to the jury. She's using layman's terms. She talks with her hands, which I'm a fan of. But I like that she's facing the jury. I like the way this is being presented.
And as part of this external examination, do you photograph the body both before and after it is, I guess for lack of a better word, cleaned?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe once the as-is photographs are taken, what happens next?
So once the as-is photographs are taken, we would collect trace evidence, if depending on the type of case, but you would not want to do that after you clean the body. So we'll collect any trace evidence and then fingerprint the body, and then we will clean the body. And that way you remove any clothing, any evidence of medical intervention, any dirt, blood, etc., so that you can see the body in its entirety.
Now, I noticed in your report, and I believe we're still on page 1, that you talked about the hair being wet.
Yes, sir.
Was that from being cleaned or something else?
No, it was received that way.
And commonly in an autopsy, if a person had been wearing clothes at the time that they were deceased, what would you receive? Just the body or something else?
If they had clothing on at the time that they were pronounced, the clothing would still be on the body, or clothing that may be with the body come with the body.
And was any clothing brought to you with the body of Athena Strand?
No, sir.
Now, with regard to...
And it's very subtle. And look, I'm not a bodyologist, but you can tell how difficult it is with her. The pursing of the lips, the kind of, it's subtle, but the deeper breaths. This is not easy for her to talk about, but I'm glad that she's making a bridge for the jury. And this should be shown in law schools. This careful, thought out, strategic approach to very difficult witnesses for the jury should be taught. This is good. We should have other baby lawyers look at this, understand the strategy. Heck, get these lawyers, in as professors or to talk at symposia about what they did, what steps they took, because this is how, difficult case autopsy should be handled. I have never seen a better handling of it, and this should be taught. This is full of dignity and respect. It doesn't pull on the heartstrings. It's absolutely one of the better medical examiner directs that we've seen. It just sucks that it's on a monstrous case.
The evidence of the body itself, can you just kind of give us, you weighed the body?
Yes, sir.
Right. And what was the weight of this little girl?
The weight is 67 pounds.
And what was the height or measurement?
52 inches.
And in layman's terms, or feet and inches. I don't
Yeah,
know.
make me do math. I'm showing my Terra County son.
God bless this woman. We needed, because that on the weight, she nearly lost it. Again, laughing through tears is my favorite emotion. Now, again, Steel Magnolias might not be, my favorite movie of all time, but it's right up there. And there have never been truer words said.
So 60 inches is 5 feet, so she's 8 inches below that, so that's
4 feet, 4 inches.
sounds good, yes. I'm so embarrassed.
That's right. I think the judge would say you did go to Texas A&M. So.
Oh, no.
So did I.
Oh.
With regard to, so Athena's 67 pounds, 4 feet, 4 inches, is that correct? And what was some of the observations that you made during the external examination of Athena's body?
So I already mentioned that she was received naked, no clothing received with the body. There's no jewelry on the body. In addition, like I said, the surfaces of the body were covered with brown dirt or silt, and there was fragments of brown vegetation within the scalp hair and on the surfaces of her body. She also has what we call pruning or washerwoman changes in the skin of her hands and feet. Other than that, she had some evidence of injury, which is much more extensive than just what I'm describing.
And let's talk about that. Not specifically what the injuries are at this point, but when you open the body bag and you see the body of this little girl, describe for the jury sort of where you're seeing the injuries on her body just from first look.
My initial impression, the first thing I thought is that she is completely congested from the neck up, meaning that it's much darker due to blood kind of being in that area of the body. Trying to think of a better way to describe congested, but it was just, you could tell that there was something going on in the head and neck area. That's before we even cleaned the body.
And congestion, is that related? It's hard. I want to kind of give a lay person's understanding what that means.
It's the best way to describe it is blood backed up in the vasculature.
And I'm not sure I understand anymore, but what's vasculature?
So all the blood vessels that circulate blood throughout your body are the vasculature system. So it's arteries, veins, and connecting those two are capillaries.
And is that something that you see in certain types of deaths versus others?
Yes.
And can you describe that for the jury?
Well, let me say congestion on its own as an isolated finding can be nonspecific. And you can see it in sudden cardiac deaths. You can see it in drownings. You can see it in asphyxial type deaths. So it's nondescript on its own, but a constellation of findings can be more helpful when you're making a diagnosis.
And when you're saying a constellation of findings, are you talking about the overall findings taken together?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, once she was cleaned up, could you still see this congestion, the blood near the skin from her basically mid-chest to the top of her head?
Yes, sir.
And would the fact, I guess I have to frame it to you in a hypothetical situation, if a person had received injuries close to the time of their death and then was immediately put in a cooler type situation, either a colder body of water or a cooler like you have in your laboratory, would that essentially sort of,
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
what would that be? Sorry.
Okay, your objection leading is overruled based on the last statement.
So if I'm repeating your question,
Yes.
if someone had those findings and then died, would they be altered by being put into a cooler?
Yes.
Sorry, JKD Buck, it's direct, not redirect. This is direct.
No.
Okay. Would it slow the normal rate of something that might change the appearance over time?
So the coolness of the cooler is to preserve the condition of the body by decreasing the rate of decomposition. That's just a known fact that decomposition slows when it's cold.
So if a body were put into a colder body of water in November, would that also help slow the rate of decomposition?
Yes, sir.
Now, with regard to the body of Athena Strand, we're talking about the external examination. Were there further, go to the next page. This is the page 2, it states exhibit number 274. You kind of went on to describe some more of the findings in the external examination.
Yes, sir.
And I don't necessarily, because feel like you have to read every word, but if you give it sort of a synopsis and then maybe also explain best you can in layperson's terms so we can understand it as well.
Sure, just starting from the top.
Yes.
So basically, I even mentioned that the head and face exhibit trauma. There's generalized congestion of the head and face, which I just mentioned. I note that her hair is blonde and it's wavy and it's long and that it's damp. And then her eyes are green in color. When you look at the whites of her eyes and the lining of her eyes, you see florid petechial hemorrhages, which are florid just means they're everywhere. Petechial hemorrhages specifically refer to these tiny pinpoint hemorrhages that you see throughout the eyes. Let's see.
And those are very typical with a strangulation or even labor. Women will typically break a lot of blood vessels in their faces. So those are typically the two times where you will have those petechial hemorrhages. But I'm sure she'll go on to say that. She probably won't add the labor part.
Has her teeth are kind of a mixture of what we call deciduous teeth and erupting adult teeth, which is appropriate for a 7-year-old. The neck has trauma, the chest is trauma. I did not appreciate any trauma on her vagina or within her vagina. The vaginal hymen is present and it's intact. I did examine her anus. She had some fecal material on the perianal skin, but I did not see any trauma to her anus. And then her extremities, so the arms and the legs, also showed trauma. Her fingernails are all intact, but the fingernails themselves are dirty. The toenails are also short and dirty. The soles of her feet are dirty, but otherwise unremarkable. And then the back has trauma.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit as we go through this, because there are some photographs, I believe, that correspond to some of these things. Specifically, State's Exhibit number 235. Could you examine that and tell me what you see in that photograph? 235.
Sorry, I kind of juggled this. Yes, sir.
Can you just give a brief description of what's shown in that photograph?
So a standard photograph that we take on all of our postmortem examinations is what we call an identification photograph. So it will be a picture of the decedent's face with a number placard with that IFS number, the unique identifying number for that decedent.
And on that placard, if you use that as a cutoff in the picture, meaning you can see what's below and what's above it, do you see a marked difference between what is displayed above that placard from her mid-chest up than what's below that placard?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe what that difference is?
So again, you can still appreciate the congestion in her head and face, and you can see multiple types of blunt force injuries, essentially from the middle of her upper chest to the top of her head.
And going on to look at, there's a series of.
We are taking a quick puppy kitten break because I'm not sure where we're going to get the DNA because he is being charged with SA of Athena. So I'm not sure where they got the DNA from, but we are going to take a puppy kitten break because, gosh darn it. While I very much appreciate the way they are doing this, this little girl having all those bruises, and as much as they're trying to be gentle, you can tell this is horrific just by her facial expressions. So we're going to take a quick puppy kitten break, get a breather, and then we'll continue.
When the world feels like a dumpster dive and humans forget how to thrive, take a break, just you and me, with a puppy and kitten, wild and free. Paws and purrs, let's drift away to a land where tails wag and play. No more noise, just gentle muse in our furry four-legged cruise.
Absolutely, and we will see you back in. Take care of yourself. This is some difficult stuff.
Then I believe it's 236, 237, 238, 239, 240, and 241. Do those show her eyes on both sides of her face?
Yes, sir.
And you described, I believe, what you referred to as florid petechial hemorrhages. We're not going to be showing these to the jury at this point, so can you kind of describe, as you're looking at the photograph itself, whichever photographs you think best shows it, identify that photograph and describe what you see there as the florid petechial hemorrhages.
Sorry, let me. So in States Exhibit 236 and 238, they are photographs of the right eye, showing petechial hemorrhages in the whites of the eye, which is called the sclera, and within the lining of the eyes, which is called the conjunctiva. And then same for States Exhibit 239 and 241.
And what is the significance or possible significance of finding these florid petechial hemorrhages in the eyes, such as in the case of Athena Strand?
Again, as an isolated finding, can be very nonspecific. You can see them in different types of deaths, sometimes sudden cardiac death.
And I do like that she's adding this, because it's almost like I'm a nerd. I like that this has kind of become a teaching thing, but I also like that she's explaining kind of the way she went through her investigation on what happened to this little girl. And a lot of medical examinations are very much like a trial in that, you have to look at the fact pattern and pick the right diagnosis or the right crime. So there is part of this that I think is interesting, and I appreciate the way she's presenting it. It's just a rough case.
You can have those sometimes depending on what position that you die in, you can see those. So as an isolated finding, petechial hemorrhages are not diagnostic, but again, taken in a constellation of findings can be.
And taken into the constellation of findings in this case, was that significant to you?
Yes.
In what way?
Because it wasn't just petechial hemorrhages in the eyes, it was her entire face, basically her entire head, with all of that congestion. So it implies that blood is pooling in that region of the head.
And what are the possible causes of that kind of blood pooling in those regions of the head?
So my big concern was that there was an asphyxial component to this death.
And you say asphyxial component, can you explain that to the jury?
Asphyxia is a fancy word. It's a mechanism for how somebody can die, and there's different types of asphyxial deaths because you don't just spontaneously asphyxiate. There needs to be an explanation for why it occurred. But basically it means that the body is starved of oxygen. Either the blood supply is cut off or not able to supply blood, especially to the brain or the airway, or the person is not able to actually breathe and get that oxygen into the body. So examples of asphyxial death: smothering, strangulation, mechanical asphyxia, chemical asphyxia, carbon monoxide is an example, but that's an overview of asphyxia.
Understood. So you said smothering and strangulation are one of the
Two possibilities.
of asphyxia.
Yes.
So, and you understand that in this particular case, that the defendant, Athena Strand, has pled guilty to the offense that he was charged with.
Yes, sir.
And that was by causing the death of Athena Strand by smothering and or strangling and or asphyxiating Athena Strand with his hands, his feet, or his body.
Yes, sir.
Does that make sense, given the finding that you're describing right here?
Yes, sir.
In addition, do you, first of all, with asphyxia itself, is that a type of blunt force trauma? Or strangling and smothering and strangulation?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we have that question clarified?
The question was, with asphyxia itself, is that a type of blunt force trauma or strangling and smuggling
If I can,
and strangulation?
strangulation and smothering, are those a type of blunt force trauma?
Blunt force trauma would indicate that the body comes in contact with a blunt object. That could fall, those both could fall under the umbrella of blunt force injuries.
So in addition to that type of blunt force trauma, if you see other indications of blunt force trauma,
Yes, sir.
can you just from the opening photographs, kind of describe what you're seeing that indicates to you that there was other blunt force trauma?
So types of blunt force trauma would be as something as superficial as what we call an abrasion or a scrape. It's a friction injury on the surface of the skin. Or it could go deeper to where you have an impact and you actually break the vasculature under the skin, and now you have a contusion, also known as a bruise. Or it could go so far as the blunt object overcomes the elasticity of the skin to where now you've got it creates a gash, or what we call a laceration. So abrasions, contusions, and lacerations are all examples of blunt force injuries. What I saw on the decedent.
I very much kind of identify with her. I've noticed this as I've watched her testimony. This is her safe space. And when she gets to questions that are hard to her, she kind of switches into teacher mode at first and goes very general with the question to kind of give herself the breathing space to get into the specific parts about Athena. It's just a quirk I've noticed, and I think I notice it because I tend to do that. If I don't want to go with or pay attention to a subject, I will go very general to give myself time to really figure out how I'm going to be able to say something and maintain my composure.
Was a mixture of abrasions and contusions. I did not see any lacerations on the skin.
But it had both the abrasions, which are what you described at a more skin level, is that correct?
Yes.
And then the contusions, which are deeper into the musculature of the body, is that right?
Yes, under the skin. So it would be what we call the subcutaneous soft tissues or the muscles, all of the above.
All right. So let's go on here. Before you go into the actual evidence of injuries, do you note any potential scars, things like that on the body so that you can distinguish that from the injuries themselves?
Yes.
And as part of your bench notes that you keep, do you have a diagram related to potential scars or other things?
Yes.
And what is the purpose of doing that prior to documenting, or I don't know if you do it prior to or after? What order?
No, same time. I just, for organization purposes, I don't like to have too much messy writing all on the same page. So this is what I do for all of my cases. I have a separate page for the potentially identifying features, hair color, eye color, scars, tattoos, etc. And then I do a separate page for any evidence of injury. But they're done concomitantly.
All right. That's a big word. What does that mean?
At the same time.
At the same time. All right. Thank you. With regard to once you've done that, were there any major scarring or other injuries, evidence of prior injuries on the body of Athena Strand?
She just kind of has some scattered scars. I think somewhere on the extremities, on the abdomen, but nothing specific.
Anything unusual for an active, precocious 7-year-old girl?
No.
Okay. Now, with regard to the evidence of injuries, let's start talking about that. You talk in your report on the bottom of page 2, you begin with what called blunt force injuries. Can you distinguish, just as far as terminology, what the difference is between blunt force injuries and some other types of injuries?
So I described previously that a blunt force injury is when the body comes in contact with a blunt object. Contrast to that would be sharp force injuries, where the body comes in contact with a sharp object like a knife or scissors, a razor blade, etc. Those are a different pattern of injuries. We do not have those here, but just to contrast it with blunt force injuries.
Thank you. Now, when you are beginning to document the blunt force injuries on the body of Athena Strand, do you start in a certain area and go other areas after that?
Yes, it's my convention. I like to start with the head and neck, and then I'll move to the trunk and then the extremities. But that's just my convention.
And is that something that you do on every autopsy?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's talk about the head and the neck of Athena Strand.
Okay.
Because that's the order that is in your autopsy, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I want you to kind of give your basic findings. And if you need to, we're going to talk about some of the photographs that go with those in a moment. But if you need to stop and explain a word, because we all won't understand it, if you do that, I appreciate it.
Sure. So I'm just going to kind of read what I have written here. But for the head and neck area, so starting with on the forehead, there's a 1.5-inch focus of patterned abrasions that are on the right side of your forehead. So they're abrasions because they're.
And this is why they were looking at Mr. Tanner's shoes, and then why they had to remove the flooring on the abduction truck. Whether she fell on the floor or however the patterns got there, the patterns on her temple matched the flooring of the floor of the van where she was abducted. But it was a weird pattern that they found on her body, and they were worried that it might have come from shoes. But when they examined the van, they realized that the patterns were very similar and could be, shown to be very similar to each other.
A superficial injury of the skin, but they have this zigzag, almost like a tread-like pattern on the right side of her forehead. And then she also has a 3/4 inch contusion on the middle of her forehead. She has a 3/4 inch contusion above the lateral aspect of her left eyebrow. She has more of those pattern abrasions, of the zigzag pattern abrasions and abraded contusions that actually go across both of her eye areas, across the entire nose, from the root to the bulb. This is the bulb of the nose for me, and also across her midface, including the cheeks, the philtrum, which is the space between the nose and the upper lip, and she even has it a little bit on her upper lip as well. She also has a 2 by 2 inches abraded contusion on the right temple area of her face. She has a linear abrasion that's 1 1/4 inches just below her left eye. She has a 1/2 inch pale blue contusion of the left cheek that is just anterior to her left ear. She also has a small contusion at the 1/4 inch that's on the helix of her ear, which is the loopy part of your ear. And she has a 1/2 inch contusion on the posterior aspect of her left ear. And then she also has a red contusion just posterior to her left ear, kind of in this area. She has a 3/8 inch contusion of the lower left cheek. She has a small contusion, it's 1/8 of an inch on the right side of her upper lip. When you actually pull up the upper lip and you see this black of skin that connects the lip to the gums, that's called the frenulum. Just left of that, she's got another contusion of her gums in that area. That's 1/2 inch. She has a very small superficial laceration on the interior of the left side of her lower lip. That's 1/16 of an inch. And then she also has, I'm just going to be real, instead of being descriptive, she has what look like bite marks. It's really a curvilinear series of lacerations that correspond with her upper teeth. She has bite marks on the surface of her tongue.
I don't know. I am a bit confused as to where they found his DNA to charge him with SA with the findings that she's already talked about. There not being signs of abuse in those areas to the naked eye. That being said, this is horrible. And again, I appreciate not only the judge, but the state making this as easy as possible, because even with her being very clinical and just pointing out, this is horrifying. And like I said, I'm glad that they're being very protective of the jurors. And I think of all the ways to present this, this is probably the best way they could have.
There is a 1 inch linear abrasion on the submental region of her head that's under the chin. She's got a contusion of the right side of the submental region of her head. And then she has a 1/2 inch focus and then a larger 1 1/2 inch focus where the skin is kind of a discolored gray brown. And that also had a pattern of abrasions that is different than the zigzag pattern I was seeing on her face. This pattern is square and it looks more like a grate or like a mesh pattern, and that's on the left side of her jaw. She also has more of those zigzag tread-like pattern abraded contusions across the anterior aspect of her neck and the middle of her upper chest. And then she
Okay, guys. Well, we are going to take about an hour and a half break. I have to go get the youngmost ferals. I didn't even realize we were getting so close to the time I have to pick them up. So I apologize for not giving you guys a bigger warning that we were going to be stopping here. Now, I will be continuing. I am of the opinion we should get tough stuff over with and done with instead of waiting for it. So I will be finishing this, and I will be cutting this up into probably 2 parts. Obviously, this is going to continue to be incredibly hard to deal with testimony, so be kind to yourself. Like, if you can't hang out, in the next stream, that is completely okay with me. I would much rather you guys have, a good firm grasp on what you can and can't tolerate, but we will be finishing at least this particular witness. If I'm feeling froggy, we'll finish up the rest of the day, but we might stop after this witness just to get her all done. And like I said, I am very grateful that this level of care was taken, and the right people were put in charge of this case. I have been extremely impressed. So We will be back here in about an hour and a half. I will have a Rumble stream set up for this because, this might not be the most, look, this case might need some Rumble words. So we will get back to that. It will be more after darkish. I might have some cursey words, but we are basically going to get through this and honor Athena. I will see you guys in about an hour and a half. Be kind to yourselves, be kind to others. If you have an opportunity in the hour and a half that we will be away from each other, do something kind in Athena's name. Spread kindness. There are always human monsters out there, but there are a lot more kind people with dark senses of humor. So if you want to hang out with us, the Petty Express will be writing again in an hour and a half, and I will see you there. Bye, you guys.